Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to this second Interclean Inspiration and Innovation session, our series of webinars leading up to Interclean Amsterdam in May. Today, we're going to talk about sustainability. What is sustainability? Why is it important? What are the priorities? What can you do? And how can you get started? These are just some of the questions we'd like to try to answer for you today. I'm not going to do it all by myself. I have today a great panel of industry experts at my disposal, as well as two fascinating case studies from the industry. Our program today consists of 2 hours of 2 separate sessions. First, our inspiration session with our panel of industry experts who are going to talk about their experience with sustainability in the cleaning industry. After the panel discussion, you can engage with those panelists and your fellow attendees in our interactive breakout sessions. The second hour is our innovation session, where we'll present a number of case studies to you from inside and outside the industry, followed by 2 presentations by companies in the industry who will show what they are doing to make the industry and the world more sustainable. But before we get started, we're going to set the stage for you to introduce the topic of sustainability. What is it, how to get started, and what you can do. For that purpose, we've invited a sustainability expert, Ms. Astrid Leijsens. Welcome, Astrid. Astrid has been helping small and big companies for the last years, helping them set up their sustainability and strategy journey, from identifying what matters to building a plan and making it happen. Welcome, Astrid.
Thank you, Robert. I will start sharing my screen, right? I'd like to go through with you about sustainability, some frameworks and some examples. Let's first start, share something about me. I've actually been in the space of sustainability for quite some while. It started with Inconvenient Truth, and that year I was also traveling in Norway and Africa, and I realized I wanted to leave something behind different for my children, not just my children, but also many children around the world lacking many opportunities. I started working in your industry at Ecovet long time ago, I think 10 years ago, working a lot on ocean plastic and building a business case, trying to solve a societal issue. Today I work on strategy, how to create your purpose, but also on sustainability, what is important in your company or in your sector, and also on leadership, because it's one thing to have a roadmap, but it's very difficult to get your entire team and your customers and your entire company towards it. So it's actually about 3 different things. I do that for different companies, from startups to scale-ups, and most of them are around the world. About sustainability, first of all, I think it's important to say there's so many frameworks, so many concepts, and it's sometimes difficult to understand what in the end is sustainability. And actually none of them are 100% right or 100% wrong. So in the inspiration part on how I look at sustainability, I think it's always important to keep your company in balance with society and planetary issues. There's so many that are represented in the SDGs. I give great inspiration on start in your sustainability journey. When you talk about sustainability, you see that there are also each year different kind of topics that coming up. I think 10 years ago, it was about reducing harm. It was about carbon. Then it was about circularity, which is still a topic today. You see it moving towards solutions, regenerative, and thinking more in a collaboration spirit together with others, trying to solve. As you understand, it's not just you alone. And while you're working on it, you'll understand it's rather complicated, because the issues and all the frameworks and the solutions, they're all interconnected. So what I sometimes hear is like, oh, help, how should I start? And on the background of that, you see, of course, many things happening around the world with COVID, but also with many other things coming towards us. I don't think it's a doom scenario yet. And we see a lot of many new possibilities coming up and new positive signs coming up. Sometimes we feel anxiety, but we also see hope. And I do see hope in the civic protests that are around us in the world happening, with chaos helping to create change, but also with many new companies and governments that are changing the game. We see that in an increasing demand in conscious consumerism and questions from your customers, but also people rethinking their lives, jobs, their well-being, their personal purpose. We see different kind of new leaders around the world, and we see companies like Tesla being the new Googles, and policies like European taxonomy and Green Deal coming up. So that's a lot, but where to start? So that something I wanted to share with you. I think the easiest way to start is with the ESG framework. The E is from the environmental perspective, the S is from social, and the G is from governance. And it's just not so easy to just pinpoint one. I think when we talk about sustainability, it's about a broad concept. So most of the time when customers ask me where to start, we start with an industry view. Then with a heat map, what is material in your sector? Where are you today and how are you going to improve on that? So we start with proposition on a long-term vision on different kind of topics. How is innovation going? How is your customers going? What are the planetary issues? And we change them and put that into topics of ESG matters, environmental, social, governance matters. And we decide what in the end are really the most important ones. What is material? And you can make a split between things that are low material or on high material teams. And then you can see where you want to be in 5 years or 10 years. You pinpoint yourself on this kind of roadmap and you decide on ES and G factors how or what the next step might be on the short term and on the long term. When I work for a company like VP Capital, which is a customer of me, they work in different domains, 8 different sectors. For example, they understand what are the challenges as an industry, what are the things that they want to change, and they do that in many different ways. It's with a view on reducing negative impacts and also on a view trying to create a positive. It's possible with innovations, it's with carbon reduction matters, it's with stopping things that they do, it's with donations, and it's also with creating shared value. Of course, in a framework, communication is important as well. It's about your teams, your customers, and your society to bring them along. So why is this relevant to your sector? Well, first place, people want to work today in purpose-driven companies. We do see that after a while, companies taking sustainability serious have a high turnover and also have a higher return. And your customers want it and also will feel more confident when you take and act on future fitness. And on the last thing, I think it's something that we really see in your sector is that sustainability also creates innovation. And with innovation, it creates future fitness. So these are the first really setting the scene 10 minutes about the future where I feel that we could make a start with your sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Astrid, for your introduction, and we look forward to seeing you again in a small hour when we go in towards our innovation session and look at some case studies of sustainability in the industry. But first, let's introduce our panel. I'm going to introduce the panelists to you, who will then turn on their cameras one by one after they introduce them. I would also like to ask the audience, if you are not a panelist, if you could at this time please turn off your camera and your microphone. So our panelists, 5 experts from the industry. The first is René Remijnse, Global Communications Director, Professional Hygiene at ST Hygiene and Health. She's been with ST for over 20 years, now in the role as Global Communications Director, but she's also part of the Sustainability Council within the Professional Hygiene Business Unit of ST, and has worked alongside Oxfam Novib and also the Global Hand Washing Partnership. Welcome, René. Our second panelist is Eliza Montanari from the Pan-European Business BSC Marcas, Communications Manager with a passion for sustainability. And because of that, she also recently graduated from an executive training program on sustainability and corporate social responsibility. Also a warm welcome to you, Eliza. Third is Michiel van Doren, co-founder of Made Blue. Michiel believes in the power of social enterprises and viable business models as driving for change and impact. Doing good by doing business is his motto. Welcome, Michiel. Fourth, Frederick King from E-United, Technical Director of E-United, the European Association for Machines, and in this case, in particular, the Cleaning Machines Department. Good afternoon, Frederick. And our last panelist, Paul Harleman from Vileda Professional, veteran of the industry since 1985, and currently working as application expert at Vileda Professional, and in addition also a member of the technical committee of the Dutch Association for Scientific Research in Professional Cleaning, the VSR, for our Dutch viewers. Welcome all panelists. Very happy that you could join me today for our discussion on sustainability. Let's start with René. René, when we talked about this discussion in advance, you mentioned that you said, well, sustainability, it's no longer really a nice to have, it's a need to have. Could you elaborate on that?
Yes, of course. Thank you. And it reflects a bit on what Astrid just mentioned. And I think it's important that not only the companies, but also the industry recognizes that it is no longer nice. 3 reasons why. One is, of course, legislation that's coming through the Green Deal. We all seen the Plastics Directive, and who knows what activities come from the COP26. Another reason why it's no longer nice is actually us all needing to take responsibility for the SDGs and of course the Paris Climate Agreement. You can no longer look away as a company. But the third and most important ones are actually our customers that are asking for this more and more, but also employees. 80% of employees now wants to work at a company with a purpose. So definitely a lot of different reasons to start now.
Sounds good. And could you give some do's and don'ts to reach those top 3 points that you mentioned?
Yeah, well, let's stay in the 3, the topic of the 3s. So I think there are 3 good ways to start with sustainability for any company. The first one would be really to look at responsible sourcing. Don't just stare at one single product with one claim. I think there are many claims out there, but take a deeper look at the company behind these products, the LCAs that they're doing, and life cycle assessment, look at their targets, but definitely start with the sourcing. The second one would be focusing on waste and circularity. We all want to go from linear to circular, but if we want to use recycled plastics, we need recycled plastics. So as the more people are recycling their waste and separating their waste, the more opportunities there will be. One example is hand towels in the washroom. Only 1% of those hand towels get recycled. And that's why we have a Paper Circle who brings that back into the system. And then the last one, start with people. I think especially in our industry, people are so important, and it's a vital part of sustainability. We sometimes tend to think it's only environment. So look definitely at the people part. I would say, things like ergonomics, safe products that you can use, a safe working environment, those would be my three top topics to start with.
Thank you, René. I'm going to look at some of the other panelists to see if they have any comments on this. I'll quickly look at Paul, because in his pre-discussion, he also mentioned the LCAs that you come up with. Paul, do you agree on what René said, and could you comment perhaps?
Yes, I surely agree, and I also especially agree with start with people, because in the end, people have to do it. We have to do it all together, the industry, the users, the end users. So yes, I agree what René has been saying.
Okay, good. And then I'll also look quickly at Eliza. She was nodding a lot, but she's also as a contractor, of course, in a lot of contact with the end user, with the customer. Do you already see a lot of customers asking specifically for these kind of sustainable products or sustainable solutions that René mentioned?
Yes, of course. I think that René is right in saying that customers are actually demanding for companies to be more responsible, more sustainable. So it's, as she said, it's not a nice to have anymore. It's really mandatory for companies to take action, and it's better today than later.
Sounds good. Well, then, thank you, René. Perhaps we'll come back to you later in the discussion with the other panelists. For now, I'd like to stay with Eliza. We spoke earlier about when we prepared this about that you moved as a company from only having small initiatives to having a set integrated sustainability strategy. How did you develop that? How does such a process go?
Yeah, thank you, Robert. I think that for Marca, sustainability is not a new topic. I mean, we are a company with more than 9,000 employees in 4 countries, and our business relies on people, both employees as well as end users. So in the past, we have been launching so many initiatives towards social and environmental sustainability. But the news is that starting from last year, we have been trying to implement a more structured approach. And as Astrid was saying in her introduction, we have concentrating ourselves in identifying the topics that are material, that are priority for us and for our stakeholders. And this work has allowed us to identify also strategic projects that we want to pursue. So we designed a 3-year sustainability plan that will accompany us in the next years. And the first milestone will be the publication of the first Marca sustainability report in 2023. So stay tuned for the next steps.
Good for that. And does that also mean that you set a higher standard for your suppliers as well? Do they need to reach certain goals? Do they need to meet certain standards before you work with them?
Yes, of course. In the past, so for 20 years now, we have been working with Werner and Merz for their environmentally friendly products. And we are a cleaning company that focuses on healthcare facilities. So we have been working in hospitals in Italy, in Austria, in Romania, and in Germany. And we have showed that the combination between the highest cleaning standards and environmentally friendly products is possible. I think that these products are actually have a really good performance. They are very concentrated, so they can be diluted, and this allows us also to use less package, which is also good for the environment. And I think that this is just a good example of a good collaboration between us and one of our suppliers.
Okay. And do you also see it on the demand side? Do you see, for example, in public tenders that companies are saying, well, we can only work with you if you are A, a sustainable company, and B, if you also have sustainable suppliers? Yes,
of course. I think that also the green care procurement from the green public procurement from the European Union is one boost in this sense, because of course there is an highly increasing demand for sustainable practices, for responsible companies, and of course our customers are moving towards this direction. So I think that following this trend, last year we started a path to gain the EU Ecolabel certification, which we obtained this year. And so we have developed really environmental sustainable service for our indoor cleaning services. And I think this is our way to respond to the market's requests.
And does that also mean that you're changing the conversation from talking about costs of cleaning to value of cleaning, or to instead of talking about cost, talking about sustainability?
Yes, I mean, we are trying to not just not just respond to the requirements, but also to do better. And as I was saying before, we are a company based on people. We work with more than 9,000 employees, and I think this just sets a good example if we, as a company, act in a sustainable way.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'll move on to the next panelist, but also we'll probably return to you later in the discussion. Talking about people, Michiel, as a foundation, I'm sure you'll also have a lot about people. Could you explain a little bit what Made Blue does?
So, well, thanks, Robert, and thanks for having me on the webinar. We're working very closely together with Amref Health Africa, which is actually the charity partner of Interclean. So I'm also here on their behalf. So Made Blue is a charity registered in the Netherlands, working towards what we say a very simple mission: access to clean water and hygiene for all of us. But it's a goal still far away. About 785 million people lack access to clean water and hygiene permanently. And to put it in perspective, that's as much as the entire European population, including the UK. So that's quite a large group of people, often women and children having to walk every day for about 6 kilometers, fetching a bare minimum of 20 liters of water. And on behalf of, I think, now over 400 companies that are supporting our mission, we're trying to make a change, and a lot of that support is actually coming from the cleaning industry.
And what is how is that so? What is the link with the cleaning industry?
Yeah, so thanks for asking, Robert. So it actually originated in a discussion with a few large cleaning companies in 2013. So it's about 7 years ago. Aiming at so cleaning is about using water in many cases, and most cleaning companies and manufacturers of cleaning equipment and cleaning agents are really focusing on how you can work with less water. So wouldn't it be great if the amount of water that we would save over here would actually also be made available in the same quantities as clean water in developing countries? Now, that doesn't happen by itself. If we close the tap over here, it doesn't get any more wet in Africa. But with Made Blue and a number of knowledge institutes and governments, we've set up a mechanism with which we can promise that a 30 € donation, so a third of a euro, results in at least 1,000 liters of clean drinking water in developing countries. And that actually makes it into a business case, because saving water often means saving 1 to even 2 euros per 1,000 liters over here. And by donating a fraction of that saving back to Made Blue, we actually duplicate the same amount of water elsewhere.
And does that mean, for example, water-saving cleaning equipment, water-saving cleaning agents, those kind of the solutions that you are working with to reach this goal?
Yes, so we're working with manufacturers of equipment, of chemicals, of actually cleaning companies all across Europe and even globally, making a change together. By now having realized almost 8 billion liters of clean water, so quite well on our way.
Very impressive. Thank you, Michiel. I'll move on then to Frederick King from eUnited. The word circular economy has already been named a couple of times, but I believe that you wanted to talk about material efficiency as part of the circular economy. Could you explain to the audience a little bit what that is and what eUnited is doing?
Yeah, sure. So perhaps it's better to set the frame first, what material efficiency is. So it goes all back to 2015, when the European Commission issued a mandate on the standardization request to the European standardization organizations, where the objective was to develop eco-design requirements on material efficiency aspects, such as, and we mentioned them before, recyclability, recoverability, reusability, durability, disassembly, and remanufacturing. And in this group, experts were tasked to write generic standards first. And these standards are published by now, and work already started on a product level, which means that there are now standards prepared to determine the repairability of energy-related products, for example. Cleaning machine manufacturers, and here's where I come in, have attached great importance to this initiative from the outset, believing that they can make a contribution to the transformation of our linear economy into a more circular one, which we do by promoting material efficiency. And that is why, as a representative, I was actively involved from the beginning in design of these European standards on material efficiency. But this is not the only field where our members join forces to move towards a more circular or more sustainable cleaning industry. We have, for example, also our initiative, which we call Green Cleaning.
And this initiative, Green Cleaning, could you tell us what that is?
Yeah, sure, it would be my pleasure. So perhaps some people in the audience might have already heard about it, as there was a joint social media campaign by the participating manufacturers. Well, I mentioned that the cleaning machine manufacturers are very committed to transforming the linear economy into a circular one. And you see this also in this initiative, which we started back in 2011. So it's quite old when we began with it. And our members are still strongly committed to it and its ongoing development. So basically, what we have done is the members of our association have come together and developed a cleaning efficiency test or sustainability test for scrubber dryers. And this is the first one of its kind. Compared to the other topics, it's very hands-on. And while developing this test, we paid special attention to repeatability and reproducibility of the test and consumer relevance, because this test has to work on an international level, both for our manufacturers, but also for their customers. To pass this test, the machines have to clean a protein-based soil, which has been specially developed for this test from a prepared tile. Every ingredient of the soil has to be available in identical composition in international context, which is simultaneously, well, a big challenge and a limiting factor. During the cleaning process, we monitor the water and energy consumption of the machine. And afterwards, after the cleaning process, we measure the cleaning result. The cleaning result is determined with a spectrophotometer by measuring the clean tile and the soil tile and comparing these two values with the value of the cleaned tile. Obviously, a good cleaning result is if the cleaned value is again very near to the one of the original clean tile. So the test not only sounds sophisticated, it is even more so in real life, believe me. If a scrubber dryer model passes the green cleaning test, it's awarded the green cleaning certificate. The manufacturer may now mark and advertise the model with a green cleaning label. The certificates can currently only be obtained for walk-behind scrubber dryers, but we are already working on expanding the scope of the test. Finally, if someone in the audience want to have more information, you find an explanatory video on YouTube. Simply search for United Green Cleaning.
And do you see this also as a quality label? Would you want this to become something in the industry that customers are started asking for, start knowing that, well, okay, this scrubber dryer has this label, so it's sustainable, or that they might even go to their cleaning contractor saying, hey, I want a scrubber dryer that has the EU Green Cleaning standard? Is that a goal?
You addressed the question to me?
Yeah, addressed you, yes.
Yeah, sure, obviously. We made this first big step forward where we have the sustainability, this efficiency label, but it's not worth anything if the consumers or the users of the machine are not aware of it. Okay. So we need to go to to join forces again together to make it happen, to make a positive impact on our industry. So the ground laying work is done. You'll see machines with a label on the market. And if you use them, I personally believe you make a step towards a circular economy.
Well, then we have one user in the audience, of course. Eliza, is this something that you look at, whether manufacturers whether it's cleaning machines, whether it's cleaning agents, whether it's equipment, whether it's dispensers? Do you look at what kind of labels do they have? How do you compare those labels? How do you make a choice?
Yes, of course. I think that in the process of selecting like the suppliers we're working with, it's really important for them to show us that they are that they act in accordance to our values and to our really requirements, because of course if we want to offer to our customers a sustainable service, then it's mandatory that also our, for example, washing machines, our products and so on are free of the risk of, I don't know, maybe using so much product, for example, for the cleaning equipment and so on. So I think it's very important for this point of view.
Thank you. Well, move on to the final panelist now. Paul, good afternoon once again. You told me that you see sustainability not as a commercial tool, but as a way of acting. What do you mean by that?
Yes. What I mean by that is that that you shouldn't greenwash sustainability, that you shouldn't use it as a commercial thing. It's just a must-have. I mean, looking at the point of view of Valida, we are part of the Freudenberg family, which is a family-owned company, and it's running through our veins. So we are on the background. We are dealing with everything. So we try to lower the energized consumption of our production units. We reduce the packaging as much as we can. We stimulate that our colleagues and I are going to drive and fuel fossil-free cars, like electric cars, and then it is subsidized by Valida Professional. We started to use recycled plastics for new products, and we make all our products recyclable, and we focus on the highest impact things. I think that's also important, because we shouldn't be penny wise and pound foolish. So and you cannot be sustainable from one day to the other day. So you have to make choices, and then you have to focus on the things that make most impact. And what Frederick also said, we have to make it visible. So we have two kind of labels, I would say. The official labels like Nordic Swan, like Plastica Seconda Vida, which are done by independent parties. But you also have the supplier labels, and the supplier labels are more like we have Love It Clean label, that is to make end users, to make it visible to end users that this product is somehow sustainable. For instance, that we use 100% recyclable resources for that. So that I agree with the other speakers as well. We should make it visible, and we should make it not only by independent resources, but also if we do something, make it visible to your end users, so that they know what kind of products they use. So in the end, I would say it should run through your veins. It should be felt in every part of the company. Everybody should think sustainable in the end.
Yeah. And how do you talk about you need to choose the things that make impact? How do you decide? Hey, you could only do 3 things and not 5 things. How do you decide for which 3 to go for?
One of the tools that we use is the life cycle analysis. So that is a calculation model to calculate the impact of the things that you do on sustainability. So there you can compare things with one another, and then you can choose the things that have most impact. And then we look at the footprint as well as the handprint. It is not mentioned yet, but like to say it in simple ways, footprint is about the making of the product, and handprint is about the using of the product. So we all have our part. So if we make very sustainable products, durable products, for instance, and a user throws it away after one use, then the total impact is low, much lower than it should be. So it's not only us as producers, but also you, dear attendees, as listeners. Also the users are very important, and you can calculate that with an LCA, and that's one of the tools we use for a basis to make our decision, what comes first and what next.
Thank you. And you also mentioned, well, we're using all kinds of labels, whether it's industry labels or manufacturer labels, to show the end users that it's a sustainable product, but how do you convince the end user to use the sustainable product, even if it might be a little bit more expensive? In the end, unfortunately, the cleaning industry is still very much cost driven. So how do you convince a consumer to choose the maybe more expensive sustainable product instead of going for the cheapest but not so sustainable alternative?
Yeah, that's a very sensitive subject you mentioned, Robert, because the cleaning industry is a much cost-driven industry, but I strongly believe these things are changing because in the past it was not such a hot topic, and now it's really a hot topic. Sometimes I say when you see it in your own garden, when the trees start to die in your own garden, then people get awake. So last we had this energy with the gas. We are running out of gas. The gas prices are going sky high, and then people get aware, and then people get interested, and then we get them to buy and to go with the flow and be sustainable. So there has to be motivators for people to do that. Otherwise, it is indeed hard to do that.
Thank you. I see Renee nodding and smiling a lot. So I think she either wants to, is it complete in agreement or maybe wants to add something to that?
No, I think Paul is addressing, again, three really big topics. One is actually communicating what you do. And you know, we also support our customers with communication materials in the washrooms. So they will pay if they can show to their customers that it's sustainable. I think another thing is the willingness to pay. And I would say if you pay now a little bit more to be sustainable, it will save you a lot of money in the future, because you will be forced to, and then you have to do everything last minute and pull resources from everywhere to understand what the reasoning is. So I really second that. And I think a third point is a lot about education. I also heard it in the tenders with Eliza. The life cycle analysis is really important. You know, sometimes we get the question, oh, recycled paper is better than virgin, but that is not true. It really depends on where you get your fibers, how you produce it. Is your factory eco-friendly? What happens with the after use? So I think there's also still a lot of education on what is more sustainable. Same with plastics. You know, having recycled plastic is good, but the biggest impact on LCA is to have the people that make the product use green energy. So it's really about finding what has the biggest impact and focusing on that. And sometimes we tend to have a little bit more ears for the greenwashing. I hope people will know these names more and ask more for these kind of things than just looking at what's on the package.
Sounds good. Well, thank you to the panelists. It's time to move on to our breakout sessions. All our panelists will be in there as well. And it's, of course, the moment where we get interactive. So that means that all the audience back home will be invited to turn on their cameras and microphones and actively join the discussion. For this purpose, we are going to switch to the breakout session. We have 4 breakouts moderated by a number of people from Essity and from Vileda. The first breakout is moderated by Jo Piebus, the Sustainability and Public Affairs Manager of Essity. Hello, Jo. And she is joined in her breakout by Anna Koningsson-Koopmans, the Marketing Director Commercial of Essity. The second breakout is moderated by Esa Degerman, Senior Product Manager for Services and Solutions from Essity, and she will be joined by Renee Remijnse. The third breakout is Jochem Wiersching, Science and Training Manager from Vileda, joined by Steve Barber, the Global Marketing Director of Product Development. And the fourth and last breakout is moderated by Andreas Eisenhut from Vileda also, and he is joined by the Vice President of Global Marketing, Mike Koze. I'm going to ask my colleague Martine to hit the magic button to move everybody to the breakouts. This may take a moment or so, so if you are don't leave the meeting, bear with us while you are moved to the breakout. And in that breakout, you can really turn on your camera and go into the discussion with the moderators, with their guests, the panelists, and all the other attendees in the session. And after about 15 minutes, you will be automatically returned to this main session. See you all in 15 minutes. Let's start the breakout. Welcome back, everybody. It looks like all the breakouts are closing down one by one, and everybody is returning back to our main session. The participants are going up, going up, going up. Think few more, and then everybody is back. Yeah, I think we're all back. Good. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to our moderators. Welcome back to our audience. Hope you had an enjoyable session. The first hour is almost over. Let's quickly reflect on the breakouts. I see some of our moderators still have the camera turned on. So perhaps Jochen, would you like to comment on your experience in the breakout?
Yes, hello. Good afternoon, everybody. So the answers were, let's say, people understood the complexity and how everything is interlinked. So if you design a product, this reflects on how it is then used and how much it consumes. And so people have understood that we are just at the beginning and that we have to appreciate this complexity and interlinking of factors. But also you could see from the answers that people think a lot about the details on products, whether it should be eco-labeled or recycled products. So I had the impression people know what we are talking about. So they are prepared for the path that will now start over the next couple of years.
That sounds good. And do you recognize that comment, Andreas?
Yeah, I think I can share that. We were touching two questions about circular economy and the question about footprint and handprint. So what can the user contribute to sustainability? On circular economy, it's, I think, quite a common understanding that we are at the beginning of a longer path, and it will be an interesting journey how we can contribute here. We are clearly not there yet. It was a statement that circular can only move forward if we think about the logistics on collecting the used products and sort them and bring them back into the loop. That's probably the biggest challenge here. So a logistic challenge in principle. On the handprint and footprint was also a good statement. First of all, I was somehow astonished that the footprint handprint was commonly understood, at least what I felt, and that the handprint then is something which is also related to the right usage of the product. So in essence, also then to the training of the users.
Thank you for your summary. Looking at our moderators from S&T, from the other two breakout sessions, Aza, how was your experience?
Yeah, we had a very short of time. I mean, we were running out of time. We didn't manage to talk about everything, but we did a couple of polls and surveys, quick surveys in the chat forum. But I think top of mind is really to get sustainability into where you work, in your workplace. I think that was rated 5 out of the highest score in terms of its importance. But we also talked about post-production waste and how to work with that. We had a great example from Tarket, who's actually recycling old floors and re-injecting into new floors, and that is great to see, because I think the building and the construction segment or industry is under great pressure in order to reduce carbon emissions as well, and to reuse and extend life. Life. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, nice to get the example from another industry then as well in the breakout. Joe, I mean, I was in the breakout session with you, of course, but it's still interesting to share for the other audience how your experience was.
Yeah, I think there was a good understanding among our audience of the Green Deal and the need for legislative change and that push. And similarly to our other group, I think everyone really saw the priority being making office spaces more sustainable. There certainly seemed to be a lot of recycling and waste separation going on, and the real need to move from being linear into a circular society.
Thank you. Well, I think that's a nice conclusion, moving from a linear society to a circular society. I'd like to thank all the Breakout moderators and their guests, and of course our 5 panelists for joining us today. And then we'll move on to our second hour, our innovation part. For that, I'd first like to ask back Astrid Leijsens for her view with examples from inside and outside the industry. And after that, we'll move forward to 2 case studies by 2 partners from the industry, Greenspeed and Pauke. So for that, first, Astrid, I'd like to give the floor back to you.
Well, thank you. So I'll start with some examples out of your industry and then zoom a little bit back in your industry for some minutes. So first of all, I would like to say that I feel the pressure in your audience from customers, from law changing. It's about LCAs, recycle, carbon waste. So I think you're very well up to speed with all the things that are happening. I'll give you some examples on different journeys of other companies. I just took some examples. Some are on societal statements, some are more on donations, some on production and facilities, some on product innovation, circularity, and so on. I think companies who are on a journey for quite some time, they are moving above sustainability of products or facilities. They're acting as a public voice. And I think I wanted to share this with you. You probably know those examples, but I think it's a good thing to understand what kind of causes that really matter to your organization and where you want to be an advocate. You see it also with companies like Patagonia, which is, I think, like one of the most given example in sustainability. They do many things, but they also have social causes that they really care about, and they use their company to make a change in society, and Dove is also something like that. When you think about reducing carbon or looking at LCAs, you also see companies who are ahead of this, and we're thinking about climate positive products. In this case, it's about carbon taking out of the product life cycle. But also when you take a look at companies like Fairphone, you see that it's innovation really not only on the supply chain in making it more fair, but also on how you design your product and how you use less elements in your product. This company is a Dutch company. I wanted to share it with you because I think there are many things happening in the world, like solar panels or renewable energy or renewable markets. And you see companies who are really agile and really future fit. They also design their products and their services around it. So I wondered in your market how ready you are for this new markets like solar energy or hydrogen cars. When I look at the farming and food industry, you see that it's also going away from less pesticides, less carbon, and it's also going to how can we regenerate the earth. And I think also in your sector, you will hear that case or the thinking much more. You had circularity, which I think is really needed, and especially in your market, really crucial. But you also see that this regenerative thinking is coming. You can also see that on a social cause. For example, Faircasso is a company who tries to avoid people getting more and more poor once they can't pay their bills. So they collect debts in a different way, which is also regenerative, but on social issue. And when you think of factories, I think it's not about using less carbon or better waste.
Goedemiddag Amsterdam met Martine.
But also...
Hi, hallo, goedemiddag.
But also with regenerative ways of using your facility as a solution like a forest. And also companies are thinking much more further. They don't just want to have nice products, but they also think of their governance. They also talk to all their suppliers on code of conducts and much more. So it's just like somebody else said, it's in your vein, it's in everything you do. Another example is a company I help, it's selling screens. They sell screens now. Each time if you lower your speed around the school, there's a donation given to that community. It's in my view also a social innovation. And this company is a textile company. It's using their facility to help refugees, giving training. In your market, some examples that I thought that would be worth mentioning, or that from which I thought it was a good example. I think Febeco was really nice on how they see and look and care about their employees, and how they have programs on financial vitality for everybody working for them. I think that's a really nice example of a social company, a social innovation. The same with Sepia company I'm helping. They saw an issue in Nepal and they created a product around it, and the more they sell, the smaller the issue in another part of the world might be. I also see examples of circular soap, sustainable cleaning as service, and many innovations in probiotics, which is, I think, the regenerative thinking, but in your market. I also see examples of companies and products that are science-based proof, meaning that their products are fitting within the 1.5 degrees, which I think is needed, a way that probably all of you will have to go through. And I also see some societal statements on fighting fashion and many other issues in your market. So I see actually many of the examples I see in other sectors coming in your sector as well. Some final slide from my side. I think it's about progress, not perfection. There are many things to do, and with all the laws coming up, I think it's also sweating the details, because lots of things to do. It's not just about innovation or environment, it's about people, it's about governance. Your plan will have look nice, but will have many jumps. And once you're working on it, it will never stop. And I think that's a good thing. It will keeps us moving, but there are, even if we think now, so many things to do, there will be more behind it. And that's what thank you for listening.
Oh, I don't know. We had some nice music at the end. I don't think that came from you, Astrid, but it was a nice conclusion, probably. Once you start, you can't stop moving. Thank you very much, Astrid, for your two presentations and for inspiring a little bit our audience with your knowledge and expertise. Then it's time to move on to our two case studies from the industry. First is Palke Schaumstoffe, and for that I would like to ask Patrick Kopische to turn on his camera and microphone. Patrick is the managing director of Palke Schaumstoffe, a manufacturer from Germany, and he's going to talk about the future of sustainable foams. As in many other industries, sustainability is an important challenge for the foam industry. Key players are intensifying their research in an effort to develop more sustainable solutions. And Patrick would like to take you on a journey on where it started and where it's going. This presentation will take about 10 minutes. And after that, there's also time for Q&A. So if you come up with any questions that you would like to ask Patrick during his presentation, feel free to drop these in the chat. So we can ask them to Patrick after his presentation. Welcome, Patrick, and I look forward to your presentation.
Well, thank you very much, Robert. I will share my screen, just 1 second. So I hope you can all see the presentation right now.
We can see it.
I would like to welcome you to our presentation about sustainable PU foams and the current situation and prospects. And let me start with the first question: why are so many of you attending today? I think we already heard the answer, because it's not a nice to have anymore, it's a must have, or in other words, plastics and foams are under pressure. We know why it is so. We're talking about a material which is primarily produced from crude oil, which is a limited resource, and a point very important in the current climate discussion, has a high CO2 emission. But we also have other not resolved issues, like, for example, an unsettled disposal question, and of course, you know it all, the ongoing microplastics discussion. Which means that plastics and foams as well have a very negative image right now, and that we're seeing first substitution tendencies. We are Converter, working in different sectors, also in the packaging sector, and we can observe that in the packaging sector, foams are increasingly replaced by recycled cardboard, for example, which is of course a development which we observe very critically. Nevertheless, foams still have several major advantages that other materials do not have. And if we talk about the cleaning and care sector, of course, we're talking about the last point, bullet point you see on the slide, high liquid absorption and soft touch properties. It will probably be very difficult to substitute foams and sponges in the cleaning and care area, because I don't see us cleaning with cardboard sponges. But still, it means we are not talking about substitution, but we're talking about alternatives. And we are working with our main suppliers on the issue for some years now, and we have identified 4 different processes for producing more sustainable foam materials. All these processes have some things in common. They concentrate on the polyols. I'm not a chemist, probably you aren't as well. Polyols are one of the 2 main ingredients in PU foams, besides isocyanates, and all the different processes concentrate on the polyols and try to reduce the use of crude oil in the production of those polyols, and therefore in the foam materials, meaning a reduction of carbon emission. And we also have different processes that represent the beginning of a circular economy. Let's have a closer look on the different processes. The first one are renewable raw materials. The principle is pretty simple. You partially replace the crude oil by vegetable oil. You have different vegetable oils that can be used, for example, like rapeseed, soya, or palm oil, or castor oil as well. One oil we are actually using in quality we developed with one of our suppliers. The advantage is clear. You use a renewable raw material instead of a limited fossil resource. But of course, every renewable raw material has to be grown, which means we are in a competition with food or animal feed users. And if you think of soya or palm oil, you know the discussions about monocropping and illegal clearing. I enclosed some slides about specific foam qualities. I will probably skip them because we don't have enough time. I enclosed them to show you that we're not talking about theoretical possibilities anymore, but we're talking about specific qualities which have already been produced and processed, converted, as you can see, so then we can take the next step and not discuss theoretically anymore, but concretely about specific qualities. Second process, chemical recycling. Very interesting process, which basically consists of reusing material residues from production processes, which are recycled into new polyols through the chemical process of solvolysis. Please do not ask me how it works. I don't have a clue, I'm not a chemist, but I know that it does work. So interesting, because we're talking about circular economy here by recycling material residues. The problem right now, you can imagine, production residues are, let's say, not very voluminous. So if we want to upscale this process, we will have to talk about post-consumer residues and about collecting and recycling system, which is up to the case. But we already have, for example, in France, the obligation to collect foam mattresses, so that we're talking about big quantities, big volumes there. Next quality. Third process, solid dispersion. Also a form of recycling, but we're not talking about chemical recycling here, but of physical recycling, and not of flexible foams, but of rigid foams used in the construction sector. Those foams can be ground into a very, very fine powder, which can be added during the foaming process of new PU foams. Also interesting because you have a circular economy aspect, but if you have a look on at the left side of the slide, you see the sustainable proportion is relatively low. Interesting is that this process can basically be combined with other processes to reach a higher sustainable proportion. Also, same thing, circular economy means collecting a recycling system if you want to upscale it. And there are also certain impacts on color and properties. So if you like brown, it's fine. If you like other colors, you will probably have certain drawbacks. Last process, CO2 upcycling. This is a process mainly developed by Covestro, which intends to replace the use of crude oil by CO2. The CO2 is a byproduct of chemical production processes and is reused instead of crude oil, and thus prevents carbon emissions. It's a very interesting process, but as you see on the left side, also with the right now still a little bit moderate sustainable proportion. And it's definitely a process which is in high need of explanation, because the CO2 is not very positively associated with environmental friendly products. So everything I'm talking about is not theoretical anymore, but it's practical, and still it's work in progress. All processes, all qualities I'm talking about are still in different stages of development, meaning they have all been foamed, they have all been produced, they have all been converted, but generally on test facilities, only in one case, when it comes to ours, on a regular facility. And as our supplier also well tells me, there is a big difference between test facility and regular facility. We have technical properties that are quite similar to conventional foams, but not yet completely comparable. And a very big issue and important point, and maybe we'll discuss it later on, sustainable polyols and therefore the sustainable foam materials are still considerably more expensive than conventional foams. Also, scaling possibilities are still unclear, and the point that misses here is that sustainable proportions are still, well, let's say moderate, but of course you have to take the first step and to develop it further. So what can we do? Lay back another 2 years, wait that all those difficulties will be resolved? I don't think so. We don't have the time because the pressure is on and it's supposed to increase. Social pressure, political pressure, but also economical pressure. So we have to go on. And I've talked a lot about why we have to go on, but there's also one reason why we should not only have to go on, but why we should want to go on. And that's our common future. I have 2 children, aged 13 and 16, and the older one is a Fridays for Future activist. And I think most of us have children, grandchildren. And so one common goal should be to build a common future worth living in. That's why we're looking for leaders. We're looking for companies willing to press ahead and out of responsibility, but also, as we're talking about business here, out of because of hard facts like corporate image benefits and long-term competition advantage. So make the first step and join us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Patrick, for your interesting presentation on sustainable foams. Like I mentioned, if you have a question for Patrick, feel free to place this into the chat right now or save them for afterwards, because actually Patrick will also be in a breakout after the second presentation. I see that there is actually a question coming in from, I have to scroll up to see who is it from. It's from Mike Kozub. We just saw him earlier. Great presentation, thank you. To work on the polyols is clearly the easier part and the right step. How do you judge the chances to make the isocyanate portion more sustainable, to become really sustainable for the whole product?
Thank you very much for the question. Actually, I can't answer it because, as I said, I'm not a chemist. We're a converter. We're working together with our supplier. But I will be happy to take it up and to talk about it with our development partner to see if we can also work on the isocyanate part of foaming.
Okay, thank you for answering. Myself, I was wondering, you mentioned it's still a work in progress, but do you still have, or do you already have perhaps some first practical experiences with sustainable foams and products?
Yes, on a small scale, I have to be honest. We have all the qualities I showed in the presentation are qualities already foamed, where we received several blocks. You normally get your foam in blocks. So we had the opportunity to process the blocks and to test the technical properties of the foam. And I can say that there are no any drawbacks when it comes to that. So basically all the foams can be processed completely normal. We also have a few customers that have already ordered products produced with those more sustainable foams. For example, in the packaging sector and also in different other sectors. And we get, let's say, good feedback, but that's also part of the work in progress, that we want to bridge the gap between the suppliers, which have told us for years, oh, you know, we could do more sustainable foams, but there is no specific demand. And the customers, which for years have told us, oh, you know, we would like to buy more sustainable foam, but there's no specific offer. And so we're trying to bridge that gap and actually to develop new foams with our partners, as I said, but also to get the feedback of our customers and in order to develop and to improve the sustainable foams.
Okay, thank you. Well, noble purpose to help to bridge that gap for your customers and for your suppliers. Thank you for now, Patrick. As I mentioned, he will be back in his own breakout after the second presentation. And for that second presentation, I would like to ask Lies Marijnissen to join our virtual stage. Lies Marijnissen is Product and Sustainability Manager at Greenspeed, and she will be talking about, and I hope I pronounced correctly, Rebel, the microfiber cloth that rebels against waste, which is all part of Greenspeed's continuous focus on circular cleaning and fully circular microfiber cloth. There's, of course, also time to ask questions to Lies after her presentation, and also Lies will have her own breakout afterwards. But for now, Lies, I look forward to your presentation.
Thank you. And thank you for everybody to stay until now in the webinar. For those who expected Johan Tops to be here, he's unfortunately caught by COVID. So I have the honor to present to you the Rebel case. To start with the case, it is important to know the background. So also the impact of the textile industry as a whole. Therefore, I like to look into the stream of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation about Circular Fiber Initiative. And there we learn a lot from the emissions in the waste of the textile industry. If you look into the different production steps, within every step, there is a lot of CO2 emission involved. Also, there is an excessive water usage and also water pollution. And at the end, because it's still a very linear model, there is a lot of waste. If we dive into numbers, to give you numbers, the total gas emission, so the CO2 emission, is estimated of 1.2 billion tons annually a year for the total textile industry. And this is more than all international flights and maritime shipping combined. So it is a lot. Also, a lot of resources are used. And there are also hazardous substances still in place for the dyeing, for example, or the treatment of the textiles for the production of cloths, of cleaning material, etc. In the cleaning industry, luckily, we have already in place the Nordic Swan criteria for microfiber products, which is well known and used as a good basis. Also, Ecotex and Cradle to Cradle Ecolabel have their criteria, so please look for those products because we don't want hazards chemicals into our materials, and also we don't want to harm the people working in the textile industry, and certainly not the people who are working with the cleaning materials. At last, as I already mentioned, the fiber production itself, it mostly non-renewable resources used for cleaning material like the microfibers. But also, if we look into cotton, there is a lot of fertilizers used. So in the textile industry, there is a lot of non-renewable resources used. And at the end, after use, if we are lucky that it's a reusable product, then afterwards, until now, it ends all in landfills and they are burned. So there is none a really circular case. That is why we at Greenspeed, we dive into every production step and tried to enhance it and to do good instead of bad. And that's why we came up with the Rebel, indeed, the microfiber cloth that rebels against waste and pollution. And we want really to have a circular model. So we start from recycled material generated from PET, post-consumer bottles, which were shredded and melted into granulates. From these granulates, we make again high quality fibers, and then the rebel cloth exists, which is a very high quality product, which can be laundered, washed several times, at least 500 times. So it can be reused. And at the end, we foresee a recollecting system because these cloths are designed to be recyclable, and we have contact with recycling plants which can do this for us. So if we look again into the different production steps of the first chart, we did a lot of actions to improve. For the fiber production, we go up to recycled materials. In the production itself, we have noted doing LCA, so really life cycle analysis. We have seen that the production, the energy used during the knitting is the most, has the biggest impact on the CO2 emission itself. So we ended up with a more efficient energy use, a different way of knitting. Also during the production, we opt for non-toxic dyeing. The dyes which are approved by Nordics 1 criteria, which we already have on our other cloths. And also we want to opt for renewable energy. In Europe, it's quite common, but most production of textiles is based in Asia. So there it's something new and ready to start up, which we should enhance. Then the next phase, the user phase, it has really, like we already heard other people talking already, the use phase is really important and has a large impact. Therefore, you need to opt for high quality materials that during the cleaning, during the use, you reduce the use of water and detergents. So we really need to opt in the case of microfiber, for well-splitted materials with a great cleaning capacity, which you can work efficient with. And on the other side, you have to reuse. So it can be laundered over 500 times so that you have good products that don't shrink, that don't disform, and also that keep their cleaning capacity and lose at least less microplastics as well during the washing. So it's really important to invest in good products and look to the total cost of ownership. So the pay for use, actually, if you count like that, it will be less than when you use low quality products, which you can only laundering 200 times. Also the footprints at the end, if you can reuse your product more, the footprint at the end will be lower. The end of life, that's something new. We want to recollect, and we have optimized our products for recycling. We opt for monomaterials, and also by investigating not using toxic ingredients in the beginning, we can recycle it with a plant in the Netherlands. At this moment, it's still depolymerization or mechanical recycling, but they are planning to have a chemical recycling where our products are already tested on. So then we can even go for upcycling as our materials are optimized for doing that. So we have again monomers, which can be used to a PET bottle, etc. When it comes to the impact, it's important to see when you do all these changes, what this will have as an impact. We have done life cycle analysis, and then you see it's on different steps. It's not only on CO2 emission, it's also on the water footprint, the land use, energy use. But the biggest impact is on the CO2 emission generated during productions. So by choosing for recycled fibers, more efficient production, more sustainable packaging, and a possibility to recycle, we end up with very low CO2 footprints, and we save up to 200 grams for each cloth, which means that if you use 300,000 Rebel microfiber clothes, you save enough CO2 to drive with a car around the world. in the cleaning sector, there are millions of microfiber cloths used every year, so we can make altogether a big impact by choosing for recycled material and make it recyclable. So to have again the rebellious features, choose for products made from recycled material, choose for products that can be recyclable and are optimized. See if there is any CO2 reduction in the production itself. Like if you do LCA analysis, you can really measure where the biggest impact is, like we did. Opt for sustainable packaging. Maybe that's not the biggest impact, but it's a waste generation stream. The most important is the reuse phase. Products with a longer lifetime, a higher quality, will have an immensely lower footprint than products which are disposable, etc. High quality microfibers, you want to have the same efficiency as other products. So it's really important for cleaning people that they have still the same quality as before. So that's why we say this Rebel cloth is 100% circular. Nice to know, always to tell. I don't know if you see for us, for Greenspeed, the biggest difference between the original cloths and our new Rebel cloths. It is a small detail, but it's the recognizable green trim. It became now a white border, and this has to do with the recyclability, because with the tests we did with the chemical recycling, it seems that this green color was still visible in the end result. And as we really want to have high quality monomers at the end, we decided to leave our pride aside and to go for a white border. So light colors, monomaterials make it easy to recycle, and we opt for the circular economy. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have questions, please shoot.
Thank you, Lies, for your presentation. Well, I think looks like my background has completely taken over the Greenspeed color as well. But there are indeed two questions, actually both about the same topic, recycling of recollecting. I mean, it's Patrick Copici, who we just saw, who brought it up initially, asks how do you organize recycling, and then Wilfried Teunissen comments that he is also very curious to hear about the collecting process. He says, what I've heard from other waste collectors is that they are willing to collect if the amount and value of waste is large enough.
Yeah.
Could you comment on that?
Yeah, we have now a kind of partnership with the recycling plant in the Netherlands. For the recollecting, we have systems in mind. We have agreements with certain customers and distributors. So it's really depending on the case. If it's a really small office with using 10 cloths and want to resend it, it will be like with return label, like we do for cloths we buy on the internet. If it's really big companies like hospitals, schools, where a lot of cloths are used, we use collecting box and reverse logistic with our distributors. And then we collect it, and if we have a certain amount in our plant, we can allocate it to the recycling plant. It's really a textile specialized recycling plant. We also have calculated that one cloth cannot travel more than 2,000 kilometers. If it travels back more than 2,000 kilometers to us, then it is not worth to recycle. So there are really a lot of parameters which we need to keep in mind if it's valuable or not. So we need to see it case by case. Also, we are now in a test phase because we launched it this year, and until now we didn't receive cloths back, only from testing. We need to see how we receive it back, and that's again the responsibility of the users. If we receive it back dirty with a lot of bleach, etc. So the fibers are damaged, we cannot do anything with it. If it are clean, dry cloths, it can be easily recycled. But that we need to see how we receive it back. And also at the plant, they can use, even if the fibers are damaged, they can use it as filling material for furniture or etc. So it's still, we have a lot of scenarios in our minds, but it's still a pilot phase to recollect them. And also important to know is that the European Commission has agreed on a law that by 2025, textile will become a separate waste stream. So by then there will be more locally possible, and that's only what we can, which we support a lot. Because recollecting and getting it all to green speed, it's not the best case. We really need to see that there are local recycling possibilities.
Just like Patrick's presentation, also still a little bit work in progress, but it's great that you started this up. We have to move over to our breakouts. Again, just very quickly, a comment from Twan Noble in the chat, who thank you for your very nice presentation and the nice subjects. And also another comment, must be quite a challenge to getting all the quality fiber for a recycled product. But time for the breakouts again. This time a breakout by Paalke, Shamslova, and a breakout by Greenspeed. We have two moderators again. Well, the familiar faces. Patrick Kopische will moderate a breakout and he is joined in that breakout by Lena Luke, marketing manager at Paalke, and Lies Marijnissen will moderate one session, and she is joined by Michel de Bruyne, the CEO of Greenspeed. The breakouts will soon begin, and contrary to our previous breakouts where we automatically located everybody into a breakout, in this second breakout session you can actually choose where you would like to go. So would you like to know more about Paalke Shamshoffen, the new sustainable foams and all that process, you can go to breakout room 1. And if you would like to learn more about microfiber cloth, the entire recycling process, then you can go to breakout room 2. My colleague Martina will again press the magic button to start the breakouts, and then you can choose, and you can do this by going to the bottom of your screen to the menu of Zoom. There you will see a number of buttons, including participants, chat, share screen, raise hand, and record. And in a few moments there will also appear a button, breakout rooms. And if you click on that button, you will be able to go to the breakout. So please let the breakouts begin. And after the breakout for about 15 minutes, I look forward to see everybody back here. And welcome back. It looks like everybody is slowly coming back to the main session from the breakouts. Welcome back as everybody slowly comes back into the main session. Hope you all had a very nice breakout, either with Paalke or with Greenspeed. See, we still have some final people coming back in. Looks like mostly the people from Paalke's breakout have returned, and probably Greenspeed is still wrapping up their presentation, as I don't see those people just yet. So welcome back in any case for those who are already back here in the main session. And yes, there the others are. Welcome back also for the attendees that were in the breakout session of Greenspeed. Welcome back here in the main stage, the main studio of the Interclean Inspiration and Innovation session. And this actually also almost concludes our session of today. I would just like to quickly reflect on this breakout as well. Perhaps, Patrick, you can comment on your experiences in your breakout.
Yes, right. Thank you. Very briefly, so we asked a few questions to the participants of our breakout session. First one was which of the 4 processes I presented in the presentation seemed most interesting to them. And with two clear favorites, this is the chemical recycling and the CO2 upcycling. We then wanted to know from everybody if they would be willing to pay more for a more sustainable product, because as already mentioned today, the price is still an issue. And basically everybody with one exception was willing to pay more. And when we asked about percentages, how much more they would be willing for a more sustainable product, most answers were between 10 and 15%. So we know there's let's say a willingness to pay more, but it has to be in a certain range compared to conventional.
Well, that's a good conclusion, good information to have. So 10 to 15% willingness to pay more for sustainable products. And I would assume these are proven sustainable products, of course. Lise, how was your experience in the breakout together with Michelle?
Yeah, it was short. We were just starting actually the conversation. But we first asked about the knowledge, about how do you see your knowledge from 1 to 5 about circular and healthy cleaning, and it was quite diverse. So some were, most of them, I think we learned a lot today with the webinar. But there were some people just introducing into it, so it's not nice to know that we can convince more people. And then the second topic was about the investment. Are you willing to invest in circular and healthy products? And I think most of them scored 5, 4. So it's really, really important for a lot of companies. And then we start, if you want to invest, the total cost of ownership, how do you calculate, how can we foresee this? Because it's really important to have high quality products, but how can we, can there be governmental support to opt for them? The tender processes that can be changed, like how, if price is important, how does the price must be calculated? Is it on the paper use, on square meter cleaned, etc.? So that was a little bit the summary of our breakout.
All right, thank you. Anything you want to add, Michelle?
No, I thought it was a very, indeed, very, very good questions. And I think overall, everybody is, of course, 100% convinced that we need to go this direction. I think what is important now is to have more data and prove how to convince the people to invest in maybe a little bit more money to to buy these kind of products. But overall, I think it was very positive, and I think also the philosophy of this sustainable cleaning part is something you need to keep on. You have to keep on communicating that to your customers. That's also my overall impression, that everybody thinks that way. So.
Thank you very much for your comments, and that seems like a very nice conclusion of this webinar. Keep communicating about sustainability, keep communicating on why it's important, and let's all convince all the companies in the industry to move into a sustainable direction. Thank you all for joining us today. Our speakers, our panelists, our present, our moderators and the guests and the moderators, and of course the audience back home, and our partners for supporting this webinar. 2 days to put in your agenda. The next Interclean Inspiration and Innovation session is February 8th about new technologies and digitalization. And of course, May 10th till May 13th, back in person, live at RIDE Amsterdam, Interclean Amsterdam 2022. And of course, also sustainability will play a major role there. For example, in the new category of the Amsterdam Innovation Award about sustainability and environment, where we will look for the most impactful product when it comes to sustainability, and at our future friendly route past all exhibitors with sustainable, proven sustainable products. Thank you very much for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you in February and in May.